we're going to deal with is going to become more and more complex as we progress through the course book. Yeah, so I totally believe in courses without course books, but we have to bear all of those things in mind when we do. All right, so let's have that as our starting point before we talk about adapting and supplementing. Let's look at choosing a course book. What we can do to choose course books more effectively. Course books vary tremendously, right? You can find course books that are completely different from the other. But if you look at the pool of books that we have nowadays, there are some common features. Some features that are generally the desired features for teachers teaching in the 21st century. Because that's what our students usually ask for us. So usually language is functional and contextualized. By functional, I mean it's very hard nowadays to find a course book that will say, the present perfect. So the objective of that unit is to study the present perfect, or le plus que parfait. It's very hard to find course books that are like this, because the general consensus is that teachers want to study languages. Students want to be able to communicate in that language. They don't care if that's a complement or a direct object or something like this. They just want to be able to say it accurately and to use the language. So language there is saying what you can do with the language more than the language itself, and contextualized. So rather than having present perfect, look at the sentences below. I have studied English. I have traveled to Germany. Things that are not connected to each other, course books usually offer. Talking about past experiences. What are the things you have done in your life? So you have a context in which you can use that language. So the students know, okay, when I want to talk about my past experiences, I can use this language. Yeah? And that's related to requiring a purposeful use of the language, right? It's not just knowing the language per se, but knowing what to do with it. And the language should be realistic and authentic. So course books nowadays are going away from "it's raining cats and dogs," which is a very famous English idiom that in fact nobody uses anymore. Yeah? It's like designing a Portuguese course book that starts with mesóclise. Faloei amanhã. I mean, why? Well, at least one, right? And the course books, they will usually seek to include an audiovisual component as well. Technology limitations in the past created the listening. But they're not very common situations in our real life that we listen to something without looking at something. Now you're listening to me, poor you, but you're also looking at my face. You're seeing my facial expressions, you're seeing the way my body moves, and that all helps understanding, right? Apart from telephone calls, which are going to disappear in 5 minutes and be replaced by video conference and FaceTime and etc. So the audio-video component became something more and more important because it reflects real-life exposure to the language. And they should engage students both affectively and cognitively. So it's not just making students think and get tired and try to understand all the rules and all of that, but also topics that mean something to them, something that they want to talk about. So the course books are trying to get away from boring topics and more into topics that students will be passionate about talking.
Very real life situation.
Yes, usually related to their own real life situation, their own personal lives, right? Because we are a little bit selfish. We want to talk about ourselves. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And also that encourages learner autonomy. Lots of teachers go like, well, but if we encourage students to be independent, what's my job? To encourage them to be independent. Yeah, more and more, the role of the teacher has been changing. The role of the teacher is becoming not the owner of all knowledge that has to pass that on to somebody, but the person, almost like a coach, the person that will help the student develop on their own without having to receive everything ready and packed like little nuggets, perfect for you. Yeah? So these are some of the characteristics that are more relevant, together with developing the ability to deal with written and spoken genres. So language that is talked and also language that is written. And because that's what's happening, people were reading more and more. Written communication is becoming every day more important. Not Dostoevsky, not Shakespeare, but yeah, the WhatsApp messages and the Facebook posts. But people are reading more, and it's becoming even more important to help students become good at reading. Yeah? So can I give you a task? I've got some course books here. Can I ask you in your groups to pick one of those course books and see if these features appear there? I know you would like to have 40 minutes for that, but 40 minutes is what we have for everything. So can we try to be a little bit, just try to find evidence quickly. Would that be okay? Sorry, thank you. Did you manage to find some of these characteristics? Yeah? So, because most of the course books have them nowadays, right? Can somebody give me an example of something you found that is purposeful? So, remember the student you had? Remember the student you had? Did you see something in that book that's compatible or not compatible with your target student? Not compatible. Yeah?
It's an older student.
Because it's an older student, and that's a course that's aimed at a younger audience. Because that's really important, right? The course books are made with a target audience in mind. Some books are made for younger teenagers. Some course books are made for adult students, right? I think you have a very adult, professional course book there, right? Don't you? Yes. Is that the audience you had in mind? Okay, good. Does the course book contain audiovisual component? Could you find it? Audiovisual, yeah? Usually the newest ones, right? The CD is not there. Okay, we're gonna take a look at two other ways of looking at the course books, right? That the theorists call external evaluation and internal evaluation. It's not the cover and what's inside, but the more general aspects of the course book in the external evaluation, and more specific methodology-related aspects is what they refer to as internal evaluation. So here there are a couple of questions, and I'd like you guys to go back to the course book you have and see what the answer for those questions would be for that particular course book you're working with. For example, are the materials the main core course or supplementary to it? What does that mean? Was the course book designed to be the course book and for the course to follow unit by unit? Or does it contain lots of independent units or just text or just listening? Okay. Here are some other questions. Thank you, guys. I saw that some of you. Sorry, I saw that some of you were taking a picture of this slide, and I think that's a great idea because this is actually a checklist, right? This can be used as a checklist when you go upstairs. Let's say you have a student now, and you're looking for course books to use. This is a checklist that, I mean, I'm saying all these good things about it because it wasn't me who created. Some people actually don't know what they're talking about, but It's something that you guys could, when you go to Disal and to decide on what course book to adopt, this is a checklist you can have with you and check if they meet this criteria. And the importance of each criteria is relative to you, and it's relative to your beliefs and the context that you're dealing with. For example, you might be the kind of teacher that likes doing the activity yourself and not using the teacher book, and just getting the activities and teaching in a different way from what's suggested. So maybe if the teacher's book is not available, it might not be important to you. I would just like to call attention to one of the aspects that's becoming more and more important, which is whether the content can cause offense to people. Students in general and society in general is becoming way more aware of some more delicate aspects that how we respect each other's belief system and things like that. And so be extra careful with that. Units that talk about family, for example, can be particularly sensitive.
Did you find any problems related to design?
Oh, yeah.
Particularly?
Yeah, I've seen lots of nowadays course books are becoming more sensitive to that as well. But if you look at some, well, I've seen course books from back in the day when I hadn't even been born that would clearly display, I don't know, successful people as white and the servants as people of color, of one race or another, right? Nowadays things are changing, thank God. But it's something that we have to bear in mind, right?
And also religion, no?
And yeah. Mm-hmm. Especially taking into account the students that we're dealing with and what their belief system and their lifestyle is. This is another one that you guys could take a photo if you want, because that's the checklist for the internal evaluation. Because what we looked at are the general characteristics of the course. Now, how effective it is in actually teaching or in actually helping in the teaching process, right? So for example, how is the presentation of skills, listening, speaking, reading, and writing? Does it include them, or is it just grammar, vocabulary? Yeah. If you look at the listening activities, do you have an activity before so students talk about it, or it's just listen to the recording without any preparation? Okay. And some other aspects. So the grading and sequencing of the materials. Is the language, the book claims to be upper intermediate, but is the language there not compatible with upper intermediate or with your upper intermediate student? Reading text and listening text, speaking materials. Does it involve realistic interaction, or does the communication, do the speaking activities you propose are just classroom activities that cannot be transferred to real life? Do the exercises cater for learners' needs and to what is being taught? So does it have enough practice of the language that we want our students to practice? Does it help students with different learning styles or learning preferences, as people have been, the term that people have been using, right? Or if you're not the kind of person that is analytical and logical, best of luck, because that's all the course book offers. Or, you know what I mean? What about potential engagement promoted by the material? Potential engagement promoted by the materials.